Right to the timescale.
So that was doing it in line with the map that was circulated before.
That top bank was done 3 times and now they want to do it once. Or is that?
I have spoken to a representative of the church. What they said was, if we're happy to leave it as maximum of 3,
Yeah.
it may well only be once, but there might be, if depending on growth,
Yeah.
it might be up to 3,
Fair enough.
but at least that, again, it won't increase what we've already got
No.
built into Jason's
No.
contract. And hopefully, once this is agreed, if we do it next month, then I think we put something in the Brent Knoll News to explain to everyone in the village what's happening, because there has been some feedback over the last couple of years about areas that were not being cut, and they thought it had been forgotten, when in fact it was areas that had been instructed not to be cut. So it can be quite emotive as well when you're dealing with people's loved ones who are in the churchyard, and cutting isn't quite as looking as good as it maybe should. Okay, so that takes us to play equipment updates, which I think it's fair to say at the moment we are waiting still to hear back from Sport England. They've said they've been inundated with grant requests, so
We're about halfway through 650 applications they're dealing with at the moment. They haven't even looked at ours yet. They've had it for best part of 6 or 7 weeks. They are just inundated.
so we will keep that on the agenda. We'll report back to the next meeting, but Owen is keeping in touch with them to make sure we find out what's happening. Next item was the flower boxes on village entrance maintenance, with reference to the article that went in the Brent Knoll News. Some of the Brent Knoll News didn't come out until right at the beginning of this month, so to be honest, we haven't had any responses yet in terms of volunteers, but if you're happy, if we can keep that on for next time, by then hopefully we will have heard something back. And then also we just need to touch base with AD as well to make sure what the position is with the Brent Road one.
Yeah, I just want to say I had a quick look at that one when I was doing my footpath walk, and it has kind of drift.
Fallen apart, isn't it?
All right.
Yes. That's what I have to say. Yes, it's come apart.
Okay. All right. Well, as I say, we've got it on the agenda for next time to look at maintenance of it,
Yeah,
and if it needs repair, that might be something we need to.
kind of propped up.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll go and look at that. Okay. Damaged Jubilee plaque. I think we had circulated notice of an estimate that had been given us by the stonemasons, £1,400. It didn't seem to address anything to do with potentially avoiding the same thing happening again. And I just wonder whether we need to have that from them as well, as to whether there is anything we could do. It has also, I did have a response from a couple of people who saw the item in the parish magazine and sent me interesting links to articles on the internet which talks about how granite can crack when it's exposed to heat. So this was particularly aimed at kitchen surfaces which are made out of granite, but actually it's a similar sort of thing. So one of the comments that was made by one of them was whether if we had it put back there should be almost like expansion joints around the bolts to allow some flexibility, but again I don't know. It's the discussion I think we'd have to have with the stonemasons. Malcolm?
Can the plaque be repaired?
No, there's a bit missing there as well.
Oh, right.
But it was cracked. So yeah, it definitely, it needs replacing if we're going to have anything up there of that nature. Colin?
Mr. Chairman, do we know what we paid originally for this by
It
chance?
wasn't much more. I think it was around about 1,650.
Yeah, so that the replacement is more or less the same as well. I
well.
mean, I did suggest that we, I don't know what people think, get a quote for a really thick piece of perspex to go on the front, so that if anyone did have a go at it, the perspex would take the initial shock. Alternatively, put some form of galvanised metal grid over it, which wouldn't look very nice. But I do think it's important because, you know, it was a legacy from John Hart could look at asking them how we could best protect it, notwithstanding that it's granite. Then that would be great.
Our members are happy that we do that, that we have that conversation with the stonemasons, get that element of the quote dealt with as well, and we'll report back to the next meeting with a definite price. Excellent. Any other comments on that one? No. Okay. Drainage issues, Crooked Lane. I think that was last time on the agenda. Yeah.
Basically, I think Bob knows more than anyone. There's been drainage issues in Crooked Lane for ages, and when they built Bakersfield, we were assured that the drainage board had in hand, and they spent a lot of money devising a scheme to get rid of the water from Brent Knoll via Crooked Lane the wrong way round, send all the water down and send it out to Applebiddy. They got 3/4 of the way through doing what they did, and then they stopped because of a land issue. So the job has never been completed. So I feel that a letter from the parish council is probably better than the quiet word in people on the drainage board's ear, because the scheme is useless if it's not completed, and it is a flood risk. And also there was promised a culvert underneath Crooked Lane to deal with water which floods the road and gets very close to one particular property every single winter, and the people in there are in their 90s and they're still going out trying to unblock the existing 4-inch pipe, and they were promised this years ago and it's never come to fruition, but it is budgeted for and the drainage board had the money to do it, and it's never been done.
Is that the house on the corner, Dave?
Yeah, the Willies. But I feel it's important because we authorised building Bakersfield, and the whole issue down that end was flooding, and if we had enough rain it would flood. Not Bakersfield but everything else.
Jack?
I did notice the other day there were gentlemen in high vis studying the young drains at Bakersfield.
Yeah.
They were busy taking pictures.
I mean, as David knows, the internal drainage board have been chased. They have said, the budget's there and they're supposed to be getting around to it, but I tend to agree.
Yeah.
If something formal coming from the council would do no harm.
Well, it's the
whatsoever.
fact they've got 3/4 of the way through it and then just stopped. And you think, well, they've spent all this money digging the channel, done a really good job, and then it's not doing what it was intended for. So I just thought of that.
So if that's a proposal,
Yeah, I'll propose it.
if there's all those in favour that we do that, please show.
Okay.
That is unanimous. Thank you, David.
That's the drainage board.
And back to you.
Do you want me?
Yeah,
What is it, Strimmer?
this is Strimmer.
Ages ago, we informally talked about the possibility of buying a strimmer just to deal, for councillors to deal with if we get a bit of overgrown footpath, maybe not the nature of what we've had recently, someone could just go out and behind the church or somewhere, just go out and clear it. I'm happy to. I know Amanda's happy and Aid's definitely happy. I think Bob's also said. So if we could have our own strimmer, it's only a suggestion, we could deal with minor footpath overgrowth. And if people said around the village, oh, there's something overhanging, it's impassable, someone could go out and just do it to save us coming back to a meeting and saying, oh, we need to, can we get a quote to someone to go up and do this, that, the other. And I think I'm right in saying our insurance allows us to.
It does. I think we'd probably have to do a very brief risk assessment on who's going to use it and for what purpose.
I think
Some safety.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
Yeah, but that's not a problem.
And certainly it is something that a number of other councils do. And I think I'm right in saying years ago when Pete Osborne was our footpath walker, he actually went off for training at that stage and they gave him, I think they gave him a pair of secateurs and other stuff to say what he could do. But it's in the same vein as you're doing general maintenance as long as it's authorised. So, Colin.
Mr. Chairman, or asked earlier, would this be electrical or
I think it would have to be petrol just for the nature of if you were sent up the knoll and the battery went flat half the way through the job. A tank of fuel lasts an awful lot longer than a battery, but I am in favour of battery ones.
Would the council be willing for, David, if you're willing to, could you get a couple of quotes
Yeah.
Could you?
for
Yeah,
appropriate
that's fine.
equipment?
Do you have any sort of idea of price? Because I mean, you can buy a strimmer for 50 quid, you can buy one for £1,000.
I think you've got to go. I think you've got to go for something that is
Strong
strong enough
enough.
to do the job.
Yeah.
You don't want something that's too flimsy.
No, that's fine.
But equally, it's not
That's what
necessarily
I'd say,
top
but
of the range. But find a if you
Yeah.
can quote, and as Colin suggested, we need to make sure that would include
all the
safety
Yeah,
goggles
there's
and other
glass.
stuff.
Yeah.
that- Malcolm.
If you get a unit that generally for domestic use, using it other than that would invalidate any guarantee.
Yeah, I think you get a professional one. And
Yes.
they specifically say what sort of warranty they've
Yes.
got on them, domestic
That's
or
fine.
commercial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you can get some
Yeah,
quotes and
that's
come
fine.
back to the next,
Yeah.
let Owen have them so we can go on the next
Yeah.
meeting for hopefully soon. The next item was the security at Hill Lane car park and access. You'll remember that we had some correspondence that came in from a resident that was raising concerns about what the car park may or may not be being used for. Aid was hoping, and we said that he could look at going ahead with doing the restrictive barrier across the top to make sure that vans or caravans couldn't go in there. When he looked at it, he fed back that it was too big a span for that to happen. So we did have a quick look up there, and it is a very wide area. But what we would need to do potentially is get a quote for someone to extend a fence that runs from Windy Ridge down the side of the car park to make it a more normal gate size, and then get a quote for doing the piece over the top. But we need to just get the authorisation that you're happy for us to get those quotes in from contractors to see whether that's something that we want to do. Any comments or questions? David?
I would suggest that's what we do.
Okay. So so in effect what we need to do is, as I say, extend the fence line of Windy Ridge back to where I think it originally was. It's just the fence has disappeared. And then to get the quote for putting the barrier across the top would restrict the source of access. We could then open it up when it's required, but it would avoid it becoming an area which might have camping or other activities in. Any other comments or questions on that one? Okay, we'll get that sorted for next time. And then first aid training, I think, was raised at the last meeting.
It was. I don't know who raised it. Somebody did.
I think it was John actually, wasn't it? Because he'd
Yes,
had
I
the
think it
incident
was.
down in Station Road, and it was the possibility of doing first aid training, which I think we had. Colin, I think you said we'd had it in the hall once before.
Yeah, John Marco organised.
I think that was St John's Ambulance.
No, we did some fairly, well, I say fairly recently, we had a guy who lived in the village that came
Oh,
and
right.
delivered it.
That's what I would do.
Because yeah.
Does anyone have any contacts that we could send out in terms of first aid training? If not, the only other thing we could do is potentially, I think the guides had some training a little while ago that they organised. We could contact them and get some contacts from them.
I think there used to be a first responder who used to live at Francis James,
That's right.
and I think he was involved in something like that.
Yeah.
Is he?
But I think it was.
Yes, and
Yeah, he's back in.
Yeah.
Really? Does anyone know them well enough to approach?
I can ask him. Yeah.
Okay. Are members happy that we do that and see if we can organise?
Yeah.
And again, obviously, we'll make sure we get it publicised before we do.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all the items that are on the master consideration. So master report. So if we work around the room. Colin,
Nothing, thank you.
Malcolm, David, Melina, Tracy, Amanda. I'm not going to. No, I don't. So thank you very much. Thank you all very much. We'll close the meeting at 8:30. Thank you.